he was about to abandon his trip to the UK because of all the videos he'd watched. But when he came across mine, he had goosebumps, and he said there were happy tears because all of his questions got answered. I said, I hope you're not planning on sitting with that visa and not traveling. He said, I can tell you that I'm not traveling. Let me share this incredible story with you guys. A lot of people always meet me and say, what is your motivation? What makes you keep doing these videos? Is it the money? Is it the fame? What is it? Are you bored? And I just laugh. I said, it's the easiest thing you can ask me. It's impact. It's creating a positive impact. So if I can impact 0.2% of the population of people that come across my channel, keeps me going, gives me the motivation. I want to share some feedback that I received from a viewer, one of my Ghanaian viewers. And I told him that I'll be sharing this anonymously. I said to him that if at any point he feels comfortable enough coming to talk about it, by all means. So he reached out to me a few weeks ago, and I said I was so busy, I will reach back to him in about 2 weeks for us to have a conversation, because he said he needed help. He sent 3 emails in a day. He took a picture of his passport. He'd had a UK visa for 2 months. And he said, Lulu, I've had this visa. I've been on the fence. But after watching your video, and I'm sure most of you will know that video, I'll pin it up if you've not watched it, where I talked about feeling like a slave 20 years in the UK. So when I saw that, I thought, scrap this Zoom call. We're going to have a conversation now. I booked and we had a call. This is one of the most touching stories for me, if I can impact somebody like that. He told me that he was about to abandon his trip to the UK because of all the videos he'd watched. But when he came across mine, he had goosebumps, and he sat down and he cried. And I thought, why would you cry? You know, my point is to impact people positively. It's not to bring out tears. And he said there were happy tears because all of his questions got answered. I said, I hope you're not planning on sitting with that visa and not traveling. He said, I can tell you that I'm not traveling. Wow. I don't know if this is a positive impact. And I insisted, I said, you know, travel is one of the biggest form of education. And you know what he said to me? He said, do you know the most expensive thing in life? I said, I could think of a few. And he said, knowledge. It was interesting because I'd never thought about it that way. He said the amount of resources, time, money that we spend in educating ourselves, especially formal education, you can hardly put a price tag because you know that you're adding value. And I said, of course I agree, because I always say knowledge is power. Be informed. Know. He said to me, are you downplaying informal knowledge and knowledge transfer like what you do on your channel? And I said, not at all. In fact, I always say this, that I give you guys what I know. I tell you what I know because I want you to make an informed decision. And he said, that's it. He said he knew enough. But the background story which makes this incredible is when he said that, I did not think that the call had to end because I felt that there was more. And I always say that when people come up with certain decisions, they take big actions, there must be a backstory. And when I quizzed him further, he was so emotional. He said that he was 47 years old, has never been married, doesn't have any kids, has lived all his life working so hard. He said to me that if it was a video call, I would not believe that he was not 60. In fact, he was an orphan before he was 6 years old. And he lived from one family member to the next, spending longer studying because there were years that people could not pay his fees. When he got older, about 11 or 12, he started to work with one of his uncles. And that was really manual labor in the construction industry. And he was doing that side by side, helping to pay his fees and just his living expenses. Then he met a far relative who came from the US when he was about maybe 18. And the relative was very, very nice and even promised to help him with his studies. Never really heard much from him, but at that point, just watching his uncle come from the US, look good, had money to spend, dollars, he knew that if he did not travel out, he was not going to be at peace. He would feel very unaccomplished in life. That was his whole goal. So he said once he managed to finish secondary school education, he went straight into the construction industry and started being a full-time bricklayer. He did that for a bit, and then because he was smart and most of the people there had not gone to school, somebody advised him to think about perhaps specializing in either plumbing or electrics. And then 5 years after completing his secondary school, he got himself a job and he went into plumbing. His story is really touching because he has worked so hard. And not to make this video too long, the bottom line is what he was able to achieve from 26 till today is incredible. He's built himself a home. He has started a business. He is like a broker for a lot of people building their homes. He said he must travel abroad to study. I said, excuse me? He said yes. He cut his education short because of lack of funds, but he always felt that something was missing. All those years that he was in construction, building his business, he'd always said that he must go to university. At 40, this man enrolled in Ghana to do his degree. He had very good results after his A-levels, but he had to do some other courses to get admission. He did management, and he did that because his vision was to have his own business and progress to a level where he was self-sufficient. So he went into management. And long story short, he graduated after 4 years. This is running a business and going to university. And he was the oldest. He said not only was he the oldest, he looked like one of the lecturers, a bit older than the lecturers, because he looked a lot older than his actual age because of the stress he's gone through in life. Guess what? He got admission to come to the UK to do a master's. A master's. And he said he thought that his dreams had come true. Now, I said, so why don't you pursue this? And he was honest. He said, let me be honest with you. Although he wanted to come and study and do a master's, he'd already set up his business back home in a way that if he came here and found the green pastures that he thought was in the UK, then he can appoint somebody to run his business back there and settle. The cost of that was having to liquidate some assets to be able to come. In fact, he had to raise almost £25,000 to secure his visa because he needed to have paid some part of his fees. And I thought, you are coming here. You are definitely coming. You've got a visa. That one is non-refundable. And he said to me, what I'll lose is time. He said he's worked for almost 20 years, all geared towards one thing, proving a point to himself that he wanted to end up being abroad or at least get a degree. And he said now, at 47, he's got everything that should make him successful. He doesn't have a wife because he was fixated on building himself a home, building a business, and ultimately studying. So there was one thing after the next, one thing after the next. And he's found himself now lonely with everything he's wanted. But what he's scared that he might lose is the time to leave. He said, when I shared that video about how people liquidate assets, sell their homes, sell their businesses, come here, come to study, pay the fees, and they cannot get jobs, and they have to go back. And being here sometimes, you get trapped because, especially for somebody like him who knew that he was hoping to become a national, so it means looking for a way to extend his visa. He even said that he could hopefully meet somebody to get married to. All of those things, he said, it's time for him to leave today. He said today, and he's not coming to the UK as a student to pay their fees. He's lost almost £6,500, and he said he'd rather lose that than lose 3 times that amount for accommodation, on his rest of his tuition, on living cost. He's not able to work for the hours to really raise the money he needs. And I concluded by saying, make an informed decision always. Stories like this touch me, and that's why I do what I do. If at all you have any advice, he'll be watching this video. I feel like he can travel and come to explore the country, but he doesn't have to necessarily stay here. But what do you guys think? Do I really have the authority to make somebody make a decision as crucial as this? And he said to me, yes. He said, everything you said is true. I've already wasted so many years of my life. I want to enjoy what I've acquired, enjoy my home. I'm getting to that point where I would not even be able to come to the UK and work. He just said everything that I had to say. He was telling me the things that I've always been saying, and said, please keep up the good work and know that you've saved somebody, because God knows what would have happened. Whew. And I said, this is the reason why I do this. If you've got any advice for him, put that in there. And thank you guys for all of your support as usual. I have a few people to speak to on a one-to-one on advice. But like always, if you found this video helpful, give us a like, consider subscribing. I'll see you guys in my next video.